review the Knights of the Frozen Throne Hearthstone cards. Now that they're all released or whatever. I kind of did this for the Un'Goro ones, but not really like using a rating system or anything. It was just kind of like loose feelings on stuff. And so I figured I would actually just do a rating system this time so that I could actually like come back to it and see how right or wrong I was. So I'm basically just rating these out of 5. And the way I'm kind of thinking about it is like a 5 out of 5 card has like a 90% chance of being played, and a 1 out of 5 has like a 10% chance of being played, and then 3 is like 50%, and then it's like 4 stars is 70%, and then 2 stars would be 30%. So that's kind of like the way I'm thinking about it in my head, is like, what is the chance that this card sees play in Constructed, I should say. I might give arena thoughts or whatever, but we'll get back to that. So, starting off, Chillblade Champion, I would give this card probably a 3 out of 5. Um, Mostly because of the lifesteal synergy. I think it has a decent chance of being a deal 3 damage and heal 6, roughly. Um, and Paladin has lots of other ways of making use out of this, especially out of lifesteal as well. I don't think it'll be like a super 5 out of 5 card or whatever, but I can see it being run in some sort of control or hand buff type thing. So, yeah, 3 out of 5. Prince Keleseth. If your deck has no 2-cost cards, give all minions in your deck +1/+1. So, I'm going to give this card a 2 out of 5. I'm very hesitantly giving it a 2. It might be a 1. The problem is, obviously, that 2-cost cards are pretty dang good. So, not being able to play any of them. If it was 2-cost minions, this card would probably be like a 3 or a 4. But 2-cost cards is pretty tough. I can maybe see a hand buff paladin type of thing running this, and maybe Quest Hunter. But those are about the only 2 decks that I can see running this. And other than those 2 decks, I don't think it has a chance, really. And do I think those 2 decks are going to be meta? I think hand buff has a chance. To be a meta deck as like a tier 3, tier 2, tier 1 deck maybe. But I feel like a version of it without this card is probably going to be better than a version of it with this card. So on the off chance that I'm completely wrong, I'll give it a 2. But and maybe it just brings Quest Hunter into like tier 2, tier 1 viability. Maybe this effect does it. I don't know how. Like that would be really unexpected for me. But that's the only other deck that I can really foresee this making a big difference in. My biggest problem with this card is the design of this card. It's so boring. Who's excited when you open this in a pack? It's a fucking legendary. Why would you make a legendary that's like not exciting to open in a pack? I feel like Blizzard should just not print this card and make everyone's pack opening experience better, because you would just be actually excited when you opened your legendaries. Whereas right now, when you open your legendaries, you're like, just don't be a fucking prince, Jesus Christ. And then, some percentage of the time you're gonna get a prince, and you're just gonna be mad at Blizzard. And like, that's a really dumb thing to do. Really dumb design of these cards, I feel like. Shallow Gravedigger. So it's Loot Hoarder, but specifically for Death Rattles. And it's 3 mana instead of 2 mana. And I think that pretty much kills it. There's a lot of bad Death Rattles, actually. That's kind of the reason why Quest Priest didn't work in Un'Goro, is there's not a lot of great Death Rattles. And when it's a random Death Rattle as well, if it was like a Death Rattle minion that died this game, that would be a lot better, and then I could see this being played. But right now, I don't see this being played, really. The fact that it's random, it's not consistent enough. So I think you would rather run Loot Hoarder. I think you would rather run a Discover of like in Rogue. What is that card? It's Discover a Death Rattle minion. And it's a 1-cost spell. Things like that. I think you would rather run that over this, just so that you could have some control over what it gives you. Deathstalker Rexxar. So I think the biggest thing is that this costs 6 mana. And that means I think it actually has a pretty good chance of seeing play. The armor is nice, especially in the mid game, since that's when you're normally kind of possibly getting overrun by like Pirate Warrior and things. The deal 2 damage to all enemy minions, I think is another decent AoE board clear. The hero power I think is really strong in combination with mainly Abominable Bowman, the Beast. And so I think Control Hunter actually has a decent chance of seeing play. It's gonna depend a lot on how strong the aggro decks are. Evolve Shaman and Pirate Warrior are the main two that I'd be worried about right now as being very, very strong aggro decks still. So if the control archetype has enough tools to not just get completely destroyed by Pirate Warrior and Evolve Shaman, which I think it does. It might be a barely if kind of thing, but I think it does. Then I think Control Hunter has a pretty good shot. They've got a lot of tools this time, and yeah, seems decent. I'm hesitantly optimistic, so I will give this card a 4 out of 5. I'm not sure if I rated this one. I would give this one probably a 1 out of 5. And then this, I'm going to give it 2. Yeah, so that's a 1 out of 5. This is a 4 out of 5. Now we got to skip past a couple here. Why is it doing that? It shouldn't be doing them in that order, right? I don't think so. Okay, anyway. Ticking Abomination. This is a 1 out of 5. I don't think this has a chance of seeing constructed play. The one deck that I could see this in would be the, what is it, Treachery Warlock deck, where you give your opponent the bad minions, but that's not going to be a viable deck. I don't believe that. So yeah, this is this basically is like, if you ever summon a random Death Rattle, why would you want this card? You would rather not play this card even. It's pretty much a waste of 4 mana, and it's just going to get your board cleared. And it might be kind of annoying for your opponent to deal with, but it's not going to see constructed play. You're not going to put this in any decks, so 1 out of 5. Spirit Lash. I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5. I think deal 1 damage to all minions is very relevant, especially in Priest, as you often want to deal damage to your own minions. And that's why Pyromancer is so good. Is you have, Circle of Healing, you have Pyromancer, you have Power Word Shield, you have just your hero power. Northshire Cleric loves when things get healed. You have a lot of ways of taking advantage of this, and it's really great with spell power. You can play this with like Thalanos, and it's basically Maelstrom Portal. With spell damage, I think it works well with spell damage. The lifesteal is actually pretty huge on this card, because I'm not sure what the interaction is. I don't think it heals, like if there's 7 minions on both boards, I don't think it heals 14 times. So if you had like a Light Warden or a Northshire Cleric, you wouldn't draw like 14 cards. I think it just heals once for 14. Because the spell resolves and has dealt 14 damage, and then the lifesteal is like after the spell resolves, I'm pretty sure. But even then, I think just the swing of, if you're against Pirate Warrior or something, if you're against an aggro deck, clearing most of their board and healing in the process is a huge swing, because their whole thing is being able to kill you, and if you just heal for like 5, that's already like a pretty big setback in their ability to kill you, and especially the board clear along with it. So, and it's only 2 damage, or it's only 2 mana, so you can combo this with a lot of things. So yeah, I think this is probably 4 out of 5. I think that's going to be pretty strong anti-aggro for Priest. Why is the order of these not working correctly? Who knows? Okay, Plague Scientist. Gonna give this card a 3 out of 5. 3 mana is kind of annoying. If this is 2 mana, this would probably be a staple. The fact that it's combo as well means you have to play something else first. The obvious thing to do would be prep or backstab something, or play a coin, but then you also need another minion in play. The obvious combo would be in Jade Rogue with whatever that card is, the 1/1 Stealth on turn 2. So I'll give this card a 3 out of 5. I think it has some potential. It's a decent combo card. It's good for tempo. It's kind of like a 3-mana Assassinate or a 1-mana Assassinate that gives you, a 1-mana poisonous effect on the combo and then a 2-mana 2/3. So it's not bad, but I don't think it's going to be super game changing, because the restriction of it being 3 mana and combo and needing a friendly minion, I think, is going to be a bit tough for Rogue in general. And I don't think the archetype of minion rogue is going to be the strongest one. Icebreaker. I will give this card 2 out of 5. It's kind of the same problem that Envenom Weapon has in Rogue, which is if you're going to want the effect on this weapon of basically poisonous, even though it's frozen. First of all, poisonous is a better effect than destroy a frozen minion, right? The frozen effect is much harder to get, whereas you still have the same weakness of if it's hiding behind taunts, you can't invent a weapon, a minion that's behind a taunt, kind of things like that. So the problem is you're not going to want to waste this effect on like little tokens, right? It only has 3 durability. The Envenom Weapon in Rogue only has 2 durability on your hero power. You want to use it on a big minion, and most of the big minions, you don't want to take, 5, 6, 8 face damage from them. So yeah, I don't really think this is constructed playable. If it is, it's only in the Freeze Shaman deck, but I think even in that, you would rather just run like Devolves, Hexes, and things like that, and deal with big minions that way. I don't think you would prefer to take the face damage hit from them after freezing them. That seems like a hard requirement to meet. And even if you do meet the requirement, now you've just taken a whole bunch of damage to your face. So I'm going to say this card's a 2 out of 5. It might get played in the Freeze Shaman deck if that becomes a thing, but I think if that deck becomes a thing, you would rather just run other ways of dealing with big minions than run this card. So why is the card order being weird? I don't understand this. Let me refresh this page. All right, Bloodraiser. I'm gonna give this card. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5. I'm very hesitantly not giving it 5. Deathspite, super powerful staple weapon. While that was, playable, this is pretty much Deathspite reimagined, I guess. Having it on the battle cry is actually pretty important. The Whirlwind effect. The only reason I'm not giving it a 5 is because I don't think you need this card in Control Warrior. And so the main deck to play this in would be the Enrage type warrior, where you deal 1 damage to your minions. I don't know what that deck is going to be called, but the one where you want to have your minions take damage with Frothing Berserkers. There's lots of synergy cards and things like that. So, 4 out of 5 here. I don't think it's actually needed in Control Warrior after you have the Death Knight hero, or the Death Knight hero card. I think that weapon's probably just going to be better, and you're probably just going to need like Fiery War Axe and things. There's a chance this gets played over Fiery War Axe. Depends on how prevalent like 1 health tokens and stuff are in the meta. But I don't think they'll be as relevant. And it's kind of a self-balancing thing where if they become really relevant, this card will get played over Fiery War Axe maybe, and then they become less relevant kind of thing until there's an equilibrium. So it might be like you run a combination of 3 of 2 of Fiery War Axe and 1 of Bloodraiser, or 2 Bloodraisers, 1 Fiery War Axe kind of thing. So I'll give this a 4 out of 5. I don't think it's going to be a super staple outside of maybe the Enrage Warrior deck. Prince Tal'Daram. This is a 1F5 because it's Mirage Collar, but with a bad restriction. When you can just run Mirage Collar. And Mirage Collar isn't even that game breaking. And this is even less game breaking because of the restriction. I don't know of any deck that would play this card. Whereas the other ones, I can at least foresee a deck that plays this card. I feel like the only deck that you would really want to play this card in is maybe some sort of Barnes combo type thing. Mainly with like a Malagos Rogue or a I don't even know, a Yasharaj big easy paladin. I could be wrong, but it's a 1F5, and it's again, why are they printing this card? No one's excited to open this card, I don't think. It's possible we'll all be wrong, and there will be this will be a staple in one of those decks, but I'm not optimistic for this one. All right, Nerubian Unraveler. Spells cost 2 more. This is pretty much pack filler. I'll give this a 2 out of 5. The effect is decent, but it's on such a big body that it's not really that impactful, I don't feel like. You're going to pretty easily be able to clear a 5/5 without spells, or even if you need to use one spell to use it, that's not that bad. They played a 4-mana 5/5. It's not even that great tempo with the 2-mana difference. So yeah, I don't see that card being playable, but if there's some niche use for it, it'll get a 2 out of 5 from me. So do I want to be going this way? Okay, that's what I'm not understanding. All right. If it's your opponent's turn, gain 6 armor. This is a cool tempo rogue or tempo warrior card. I will give this card a 4 out of 5. I think it's decent. It's got good stats for the mana cost. It's got a good death rattle. I think if tempo warrior becomes a thing, this card could see play. So we'll give it a 4 out of 5. Professor Petricide. Secret Hunter has always been kind of on the fringe of being like a tier 2 deck. Is this going to bring it to the mainstream? I'm hesitant. I will give this card a 3 out of 5. I think Secret Hunter is probably still going to be on the fringe of being viable. I don't think this card really saves it because you kind of want to play Cloaked Huntress turn 3 and then not play your secrets, and even if you do play some of your secrets, it's possible that the random secret you get will prevent you from playing other secrets, and yeah, it kind of has anti-synergy, which is kind of normally a bad sign. The other problem is it's not a beast, which is important for Abominable Bowman. And I wanted to initially play this with Cloaked Huntress and a few controlling secrets in a Control Hunter type thing. But the problem is your random secrets are often really bad value beasts. You've got the Snake Trap 1/3 or 1/1/3 1/1 snakes. You've got the 2-mana 2/3 or the 2/3 poisonous. You've got the 3/3 bear with taunt. You've got the 4/2 cat with stealth. Like, you've got these low value beasts, and you really don't want to get those out of Abominable Bowman. So you actually don't want to play low mana beasts that have low value. So you kind of want to not play this card so that you don't get the random secrets. So you would actually prefer to play Control Hunter without this card. So, and I think Control Hunter has a better chance than Secret Hunter because Secret Hunter didn't really get any more help other than this card and the new secret, which gives the poisonous 2/3. And I don't think that card is going to magically make Secret Hunter a thing. So yeah, I'm gonna give this card a 3 out of 5. Alright, Ghastly Conjurer. It's a 4-mana 2/6 that's decent, and it adds a Mirror Image spell, so it's kind of like a 4-mana 2/10, or a 5-mana 2/10 I should say. And more importantly, it gives you a spell that didn't start in your deck for the Mage Quest, and I think this actually will be pretty strong even not in the Mage Quest. I think if a kind of tempo mage becomes a thing, this has a pretty good chance. So I'll give this card a 4 out of 5. I don't think it's going to be a deck-defining card. You might drop it depending on the meta, but I think it's good enough to see play. It's decent tempo. Yeah. 4 out of 5. Blood Queen Lanethel. Oh, Warlock. Discard Warlock. It's a 2 out of 5. The problem is discard Warlock is never going to be as consistent as you need it to be, I think. You would pretty much need to have, they'd need to have printed like 10 Clutch Mother Zavises for that deck to ever really like become a thing. You need cards that you can discard. And you can discard this card and then get it back with Cruel Dinomancer, I believe. But that's about it. Otherwise, if you discard this card, your deck is kind of done. They really just need to give up on the discard archetype or rework how discard works or whatever. I don't know. They're wasting so many cards printing, trying to make discard Warlock a thing, and it's not going to be a thing. And even if it becomes a thing, it's going to be in spite of the random drawbacks and huge variance. In some games, you're just going to lose completely out of your control, even playing optimally just because of the discard thing. So I don't think that's fun for anybody, where you're not exactly playing against your opponent, you're almost playing against the discard mechanic of, deciding whether you win the game or not. Whereas it's if you discard your key cards, then you lose, and if you don't, then you win, kind of thing. So yeah, I don't really like this card. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. I don't see discard Warlock becoming a thing. Sindragosa. It's a dragon, which is pretty important. I think some sort of dragon mage could actually become a thing. The two 1/1 frozen champions are pretty decent. You can ping them quite easily. I'm gonna give this card a 4 out of 5. It's almost like Medivh, whereas Medivh gives you 3 mana or 3 random minions based on the mana cost of your spells. This gives you 2 random legendaries, which I think are mostly comparable. It's also important that this synergizes decently with the Death Knight, because you can ping the frozen champions and get a water elemental and a random legendary. Yeah, I think it's decent. 4 out of 5. Leeching Poison. Give your weapon lifesteal. So initially, I thought this card wasn't that great, kind of for the same reason that Invented Weapon hasn't been great in Standard. But now that I think about it, I think you would prefer lifesteal over Poisonous on your weapon, generally. So I'm going to give this card 4 out of 5. I would give this 3 out of 5 in like Warrior, for example. But I think Rogue especially wants healing. And this is a pretty good way of healing. And after some of the other cards that we've seen with the, I think it's Shadowblade, something like that. It's the 3 mana 3/2 that you have immune. And the Doomerang, I believe it is. Things like that. I think a weapon archetype of Rogue is going to be decently strong. It's having the option of weapons a lot of turns in a row is pretty strong. So I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5. I think that this actually could be decently strong in a weapon rogue. Cold Wraith. Battlecry, if an enemy is frozen, draw a card. This pretty much fits in a Freeze Mage kind of Death Knight mage deck pretty good. It's not an elemental, which is kind of important because the Death Knight kind of works with elementals, synergizes with elementals. So you do want elementals in your deck, but card draw is also pretty important. Gives you a lot more consistency, and it's just a 3 mana 3/4, which is pretty good. Mage doesn't have super great 3 drops, so I'll give this card a 4 out of 5. I don't think you're going to get the draw from it very often unless you're playing a Freeze Mage type of deck, and I don't really think the 2 mana 1/3 Hero Power Freezes type thing, I don't think that's going to be played as much. But even without the draw, I think a 3 mana 3/4 that has occasional upside is possibly good enough. Bring It On. This is a weird card. I'm I'm gonna say that this is probably mostly a gimmick card and not actually competitively viable. The main deck you would run it in, you would think, would be Control Warrior, where the downside isn't as big a deal because you can still deal with their threats and you gain 10 armor. But I think the downside is actually probably a lot worse for you in general than people are thinking it is. Giving your opponent multiple innervates on however many cards they have in their hand is pretty strong, and I don't think 10 armor is going to make up for that. So I think even if you hit like 2 or 3 cards in your opponent's hand with this, I think you might just kind of have a real hard time coming back on tempo from that, depending on what cards they are. So if like Quest Hunter is the tier 1 meta deck, I could see this being played. But if there's normal kind of aggro decks, you generally don't want to play this. So if only Quest Hunter is the only viable thing and you're only hitting 1 mana things with this, maybe, but that's about the only chance. So I'm going to give this card a 1 out of 5, actually. Alright, Voodoo Hexer. Taunt and freeze any character damaged by this minion. So 5 mana 2/7s are pretty good. We have the Warrior 5 mana 2/7 taunt, which gives you armor, and this is probably better than that because the freeze kind of works as armor, but it works off of their attack instead of your attack. And so even though this only has 2 attack, it's kind of going to give you the equivalent of armor / healing in the form of their minion being frozen. And that's if it stays alive. If it's dead, then of course this is just a 5 mana 2/7. But it has synergy with freeze, which is decently strong in Shaman, and I think a 5 mana 2/7 taunt is just pretty strong in Shaman in general, so I will give this card a 4 out of 5. Bear Shark. This is mostly for Build-A-Beast. Hunter 3 mana slot is kind of overfilled. You don't really have great options in it, though. They're all kind of slightly above average. You have Rat Pack, Bow, and Animal Companion. I could see you dropping Animal Companion to play this card in a mid-range style Hunter, but like I said, I think Control Hunter is actually, I'm more optimistic for it. I'll give this card a 3 out of 5. I don't think it's a super staple, but I think it's just decent. Alright, I'm going to be right back. I'll let my dog inside, and we shall continue after that. Alright. Hedronox. So, it's kind of like a N'Zoth type effect, but it is a Death Rattle instead of a Battle Cry, which is pretty important. Taunt Druid seems like it could be a thing. Seems like a decently strong archetype. But this is a pretty hard effect to get off. You do have a couple ways of giving this taunt in Druid with like Mark of the Wild and things like that. So I'll give this a 3 out of 5. I'm not sure that it's going to be the strongest Druid archetype, but I think it could be kind of a niche tier 3 type deck. Maybe a counter to aggro deck type of thing. So yeah, I'll give this a 3 out of 5. I think it's a cool card. I like the design of it, but I'm not sure that it's strong enough to kind of make the deck super, super strong. All right, Fate Spinner, super cool design on this card. I want to see them design more cards like this with Secret Death Rattles. I think those are actually pretty sweet. I think they could do similar with persistent effects, like end of turn effects, where you choose one, and then maybe it gives you, you either draw a card, or your opponent discards a card, or kind of some different type of effects there you could do. Who knows? But as of right now, I'm not sure that I expect this card to be super, super played. It has some synergy in Token Druid, and it's a potential board clear, which Druid is also in need of. So I'll give this card a 3 out of 5. Mostly for the board clear element. I don't think it's going to be as vital in Token Druid, because you're giving your opponent's minions +2/+2 as well. And I think it mainly has use as just a board clear for like a larger Druid deck that isn't flooding the board as much. Especially because you can ramp it out. And so it'd be pretty strong against aggro decks to have a deal 3. So I will give it a 3 out of 5. Abominable Blowman. This is one of my favorite cards in the set. I think it's super strong. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 because I think it mainly works in Control Hunter. Like I said, you're kind of discouraged from playing low mana beasts. And so what I think will occur is you'll have a Control Hunter that doesn't play low mana beasts. You kind of defend yourself up until you get this card. You'll use Stitch Trackers, things of that nature. And then you mainly want to summon your Build-A-Beasts with this card. And then that's going to kind of be like a Jade Druid late game where you're going to have 6/7s and then, these huge beasts that are death rattles. Then your opponent's just not going to be able to clear all of them. So yeah, I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5. I think it has a chance to basically define the deck that it's in, and in Control Hunter. And it's huge late game if you can control it enough. So yeah, I think it's decently strong with High Main, which is kind of the obvious synergy since you play High Main on 6. But you also have to consider the 2-mana 2/2s. I believe they're 2 mana. But the 2/2 hyenas that get summoned. So you only have a 1 in 3 chance if all 3 of those have died of summoning hyena. And it's normally not that your opponent is able to clear the high main and both hyenas on the same turn. But I don't think it's as good with hyena as people are thinking. I think you actually want to control this pretty strong, mainly with the Build-A-Beast synergies from the hero card. Bolvar Fireblood. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5, hesitantly not giving it a 5. I do think people are underrating it in general. And I think the Divine Shield kind of deck is pretty strong. I'm not sure it's a 5 out of 5, but this could be your Sunkeeper Praetorium of the set, where people kind of underrate it and it turns out to be much, much stronger than they think. I think it's good even in control, because it's a strong sticky minion that's hard to get through. Even though it doesn't have taunt, you can give it taunt with Spikeridge Steed, and then you just have this gigantic Spikeridge Steed on board, and that's very hard for your opponent to deal with and get through. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. This might be a 5 out of 5 card, though, that people are sleeping on, kind of. So I would say look out for this card. Look out for Paladin to still be pretty strong. Light's Sorrow. Initially, I thought this card was real strong. In hindsight, it's not as strong as I think it is initially, but I will give it a 3 out of 5. I think it has a chance of being played mainly in the Divine Shield deck. The problem is you also have Rallying Blade on 3 mana, and 4 durability means you don't need as many weapons. So you don't want to run 2 of this and 2 Rallying Blades. So you're probably going to drop 1 of them. And I'm not sure whether Rallying Blade or Light Sorrow is better and which one you would rather drop if you had to. So it might be another kind of case of Blood Razor with Warrior, where you run a combination of 3 and you either run 2 of this, 1 Rallying Blade, or 2 Rallying Blade, 1 of this. If you're running 2 of these, that's 8 durability already. Maybe you just drop both Rallying Blades if these turn out to be the stronger card. I'm not sure. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I think the struggle is going to be determining how it fits against Rallying Blade, and Rallying Blade might just be better because it starts out at 3 attack, and being able to have 3 attack immediately for tempo is going to be pretty important. But I think it has a chance in the Divine Shield deck, and it can turn basically into an Assassin's Blade kind of in Rogue. Even if you only get 2 attacks at 2 attack and 2 more attacks at 3 attack, I think that's decently strong for 4 mana. So I will say it's a 3 out of 5, but it remains to be seen. Corpse Taker, one of my favorite designs of the set. Well, gains Taunt, Divine Shield, Lifesteal, and Wind Fury if you have those effects in your deck on a minion. So Paladin and Shaman are the main 2 that pop into mind because you have Taunt, Wind Fury, Divine Shield with Alakir in Shaman, and Taunt, Divine Shield, Lifesteal with Wicker Frame, Burn Bristle in Paladin. I don't really think most decks will go for the Wind Fury aspect of this, but I think the Taunt, Divine Shield, Lifesteal is pretty strong in and of itself. You kind of get the Annoyotron effect with the Taunt, Divine Shield, and then Lifesteal on top of that is pretty good. You know, we already have Workframe, Burn Bristle, which is run and frequently picked in Paladin Discover options. And so I think this is stronger than people think initially even. And I think 3/3 is going to often be a lot better than 2/2. 2/2 can be cleared pretty easily. 3/3 is a lot harder to deal with. So I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5, specifically for mainly Paladin, but also has a decent chance in Shaman. Trying to think now, is there any other deck that would frequently run this card? Does it have a chance in Aggro Druid? Because that sometimes runs the 1/1 Divine Shield. And it runs Tar Creeper. I could possibly see it in Aggro Druid. It might also get played in Priest, which has the 9 mana Taunt and Lifesteal minion. And I'm not sure they run any Divine Shield minions at the moment, but you might want to run just a double Divine Shield minion. In place of this, they also got the 3 mana 3/3 Lifesteal, and I believe a couple other Lifesteal cards. So I could see this being run on the off chance in Priest as well. So I'll give this a 4 out of 5, mainly for Paladin, and slightly for Shaman. And I think it's probably going to be like a 3 out of 5 for most of the other classes, where I don't think they'll actually run it very often. Might have to come back to this now that I've seen all of the other cards. It might be stronger than I think, depending on what other effects those classes get. Bone Mare. This is mostly an arena card, but I think it's decently strong and constructed as well, mainly for the taunt type of druid deck and things like that. It's kind of like a Spike Ridge Steed almost. It's kind of like Blessing of Kings and I think Mark of the Wild, I want to say it is, which gives +4 health and taunt. And you get a 5/5 out of it. I think this card is stronger than people expect. I'm not sure that it's going to define Constructed, but I think it's stronger than people think. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. But I could see this becoming a 4 out of 5 card pretty easily. It's a neutral taunt as well. Having 5/5 and +4/+4 in taunt is pretty strong tempo-wise. You know, for rogue and things like that want to taunt. This might get played, especially in a more token type of rogue where maybe you're playing the poisonous minion, the 1/1 stealth jade card, and things like this. I could see this getting played. So, all right, Animated Berserker. It's a 1 mana 1/3, which is good stats by default. If you play a minion, deal 1 damage to it. Again, mainly in the Enraged Warrior. It is only after you play a minion, not your opponent. So this doesn't just get rid of 1 health on opponent's minions, which is pretty important. And it's kind of for that reason that I don't think it's as strong outside of the Enraged deck for Warrior. The Enraged deck, I think, is decent in terms of a mid-range kind of deck. I will give this card a 3 out of 5, but it might be a 4 out of 5 for that deck. But I'll give it a 3. I'm not sure that I expect that deck to be kind of tier 1, but I could be wrong. Alright, Sanguine Reveler. Destroy friendly minion, gain +2/+2. This is a pretty ideal zoo type of card. They have a lot of 1/1 tokens and eggs that they want to get rid of this. They want to get rid of, and with this, they also have Possessed Villager, they have eggs, they have the Ravenous Pterodax that also wants to get rid of your own cards. So, I think if anything, Zoo might come back rather than the Discard Warlock. So, I'll give this a 3 out of 5. I don't think it's as super strong, but I think for a Zoo, it's a decent role player card. Snow Flipper Penguin. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. This is it's mostly for Build-A-Beast, right? It's just to get a 0 mana +1/+1 on Build-A-Beast and be able to have 5 mana Build-A-Beast cards. Because you're going to play Deathstalker Rexar on 6, and then Build-A-Beast on 7 is 2 mana for the hero power cost, and then 5 mana for the other card. You would need a 0 mana part to Build-A-Beast. So this is important that you could play a Build-A-Beast on turn 7 with this. And just for the sake of it being kind of picked in Build-A-Beast, I'll give it a 2 out of 5. I don't think it's going to be played in a constructed deck. I don't think it's going to... You're also going to get it off of random beast generation, like with Jeweled Macaw and things like that, but I don't think it's going to be in constructed decks necessarily. 0/1/1s got played in Quest Rogue for a time, but I think Quest Rogue is probably kind of dead, and they don't necessarily need beasts compared to wisps. So, yeah, 2 out of 5. Probably should be a 1 out of 5, but it's cute. Whatever. I like the card being printed in the set. At least it fulfills a purpose. All right, Murabi. So it's a 6 mana 4/4, but the frozen add a copy of it to your hand is pretty good value. However, you're probably only going to be able to get this off once, maybe twice, before they kill it. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. The value of getting it off once or twice might be good enough. It might be better than I think it is, though, because of you can freeze your opponent's minions, and then if they don't have a way to deal with it via spells or charging minions, then not only do you get the value, but they're not able to kill it as fast as I think. So it might be stronger than I think it is, but I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I don't think this is actually going to make the Frozen Shaman super powerful, but it's cool that they're making a new archetype in the Frozen Shaman. So I like it for that reason at least, and it helps that out. It's a cool effect. I'm just not sure that it's strong enough. All right, Spreading Plague. Super powerful card. I think if you get this off on two enemy minions, it's not very strong. However, if you get it off on 3, I think it is super strong. So 3 enemy minions is kind of the breakpoint of when this becomes really good, and anything more than that is super strong. You do have a lot of taunt synergies in Druid. I think this is even good in aggro Druid with buffs and Savage Roar and things like that. So I will give this card a 4 out of 5. I'm hesitantly not giving it 5 out of 5. Maybe I should. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 because I think the one attack on these is actually pretty important. That your opponent can set up board clears, and they don't have to deal with it immediately next turn. There might be a deck, like I said, kind of a hybrid of aggro Druid right now, where this is a big threat with Savage Roar and things like that. But your opponent can also, it requires your opponent to go wide as well doing that. So they're also probably threatening you at the same time. And if you don't have Savage Roar or buffs like Mark of the Lotus and Power of the Wild, then these probably aren't as strong as I think. I'm going to call it a 4 out of 5. I could be wrong. This might be a 5 out of 5 card. Cryostasis. Give a minion +3/+3 and freeze it. So I think this is actually mainly strongest used on your own minions. And unfortunately, I still don't think it's strong enough, even in the freeze deck. So I will also give it a 3 out of 5. But kind of similar to Murabi, I think. You're losing so much tempo. You're playing a 6 mana 4/4. You're freezing your own minions. You know, you're giving your opponent lots of time to deal with your stuff. So I don't really think that deck is going to be super strong. And I think your opponent can fairly easily, you know, devolve your stuff, hex your stuff, polymorph your stuff. And you're giving your opponent lots and lots of time to deal with your stuff. And, you know, maybe once they build their own Death Knight or whatever, since you've given them so much time to draw it, that they're just going to overrun you with their Death Knight while you're trying to freeze their stuff. So I'm going to call it a 3 out of 5. It might even be worse than that. It might be a 2 out of 5. Hard to say. But I don't think that deck is going to be super strong. All right, Defile. This is a 5-star card. This is like the savior of Warlock, pretty much, where if Warlock becomes a thing, it's going to be carried on the back of this card super hard. This card is super strong. It's like Maelstrom Portal on steroids. Yeah, this card's crazy. It works really well with spell power. It works really well with like zoo type of 1/1 tokens. Yeah, this card's crazy. I feel like this card would still be strong at 3 mana, and maybe even 4 mana, you would still play this card. 4 mana, it starts to get iffy, but I think this card would still be strong at 3 mana. So at 2 mana, it seems insane. So this is a 5 out of 5 card. Like, you're just gonna play this. If aggro decks exist, you play this card, like 2 ofs. All right, Prince Valinar. Again, another unexciting Prince card here. If one gets played, this card probably has the highest chance of being played, and probably has the highest upside to being played, even higher than the +1/+1 to all all minions in your hand and deck. I think you would rather actually just play 2 mana cards and then play no 4-cost cards and just have a 4 mana Lifesteal and Taunt card. But I don't think this really... No, it doesn't count him, so obviously he still triggers his effect. It's no other it should be no other forecast cards, basically. It's specifically your deck, so I guess they don't need that word because he's out of your deck at the point that he's in your hand and you play him. He's no longer in your deck, right? He's in your hand. So yeah, it's so that you can play forecast cards and just draw them. So there's maybe some fringe case, but I don't know. 4 mana 4/4 Lifesteal Taunt isn't that great. That might not even be constructed playable on its own. So I'll give it a 2 out of 5. They should redesign these. They shouldn't print these. They should redesign them because they're all so boring and no one's excited them to open them in packs. All right, Dead Man's Hand. Shuffle a copy of your hand into your deck. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I think it's a cool effect. I like the design of it. The main problem is that your hand almost needs card draw at that point. You need card draw in your hand so that you can draw the copies fast. Because I think the main way this is going to get played is in like a combo sort of deck. I don't know exactly what the combo is part of the problem, so I can't really judge how strong this would be. And it is good value, even in like control your non-combo type of thing. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5. It's hard to judge this card. Hard to judge. Alright, Eternal Servitude. The fact that this is a Discover kind of makes this card, like, insanely good. So, I will give this card a 5 out of 5. But I'm very hesitantly kind of doing that. It might be a 4. Discovering is so strong, though. Being able to choose what you summon via Discover is going to be super strong. The main card you're going to do this with is with the... Well, you have lots of strong choices, really. The 9 mana card, Lifesteal Taunt, destroy an enemy minion on the death rattle. That's pretty strong. You can do lots of combo stuff via like Barnes, and they get another card that's similar to Barnes. And then you can, do Malygos Velen combo. You can do lots of cool stuff. And being able to discover to make the combo like reliable is decent. So you might just play a deck that's like super control-y healing, and then have Barnes, like some combo pieces in like Malygos and Velen, and then like your like Miracle Priest or whatever, where you're trying to summon Malygoses and Velens, and then just like Mind Blast your opponent for 20 on like turn 5 or something. I don't know. There's probably a weird deck that uses this. I'm not sure that this is going to be a tier 1 deck, but it's at least a really cool card, and I think it's decently strong. I think I'll give it a 4. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 now that I'm talking about it more. I don't think it's a 5 out of 5. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Doomed Apprentice. This is a 1 out of 5. I think if this was 2 mana, I would give it a 2 out of 5, but I still don't think the effect is very strong. And the fact that it's 3 mana and only 2 health is pretty bad, and the opponent's spells only costing 1 more isn't that negative of an effect either. I don't think there's any deck that really plays this. So, yeah, that's a 1 out of 5. It's boring. I like the voice line and the kind of like flipped, Death Knight version of other previous cards that are the negative rather than the positive. I like the design of it, but it's so boring and bad that I almost dislike the design of it. So yeah, let's just go past. Okay, Shadowblade. I'll give it a 4 out of 5, but it might be a 5. This card's pretty strong. Especially with the Doomerang kind of thing that we saw earlier today that just got revealed. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I think a weapon kind of tempo rogue is going to be decently strong. They might actually kind of have like a pirate rogue kind of hybrid. And yeah, this seems really good in anti-aggro matchups mainly. Being able to kill enemy minions without losing a whole bunch of your own health is super strong. Frostlich Jaina. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. The fact that it's 9 mana, I think, is kind of pretty weak. If this was 8 mana, I think it would be a lot stronger because you could hero power the same turn. And then you could summon 2 water elementals, and I think that would be a lot stronger. So maybe do you hold on to the coin until turn 9? You know, I don't really know. So your elementals have lifesteal. Seems like you kind of want to build a control freeze elemental deck around this. And then the hero power is strong, but you're going to need ways to get minions down to 1 health reliably. Yeah, I'm just not so sure. I think a mage archetype that doesn't try and force itself around this card is probably going to be better. Just a normal kind of freeze mage, probably better than this. So, gonna give it a 3 out of 5. I don't think it's gonna be the strongest mage archetype. Alright, Howling Commander. So it's a 3 mana 2/2, draw a specific minion from your deck, basically. You can't discover it, which is important, because you won't be able to completely choose if you're running multiple Divine Shield minions, but it does work decently well in just your aggro kind of Divine Shield, lots of minions deck. It can draw Tyrion, it can draw Wickerframe Burn Bristle, it can draw the 5 mana 1/7 dude, Bolvar. I'll give this card a 4 out of 5. I think being able to choose and kind of narrow down your options of drawing specific minions, I think that's going to be pretty strong. I think this is mainly for a control type of deck. I don't think it's going to be played in like an aggro deck, an aggro Divine Shield deck, because a 3 mana 2/2 isn't really strong aggro, and you don't really need to draw cards as much as you just need tempo on board, and that's not really great tempo. So I think it's mainly for control. But as we've seen in like Arcanologist, being able to narrow down your draws just for control matchups and being able to reliably have drawn your control cards like Ice Block, like Tyrion, you know, that's pretty strong in and of itself. So I'll give this a 4 out of 5 just for that reason. Venom Strike Trap. The main place you would play this is in Secret Hunter, but even then it doesn't really help out Secret Hunter that strong, and I think an actual Control Hunter is probably going to be better than the Professor Putricide's Secret Hunter, so I'll give it a 3 out of 5. A 2/3 Poisonous Cobra isn't super easy to deal with, but it's not super hard to deal with either. So there's a chance this gets you good tempo for a secret. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Alright, Ice Walker. I'll also give it a 3 out of 5. Kind of hesitantly giving that a 3. Might be a 2. Being able to freeze things multiple turns in a row is pretty strong, but it's 2 mana 1/3, and you already have so many other board-wide freezes. Do you really need this card? I don't really think you need this card. Yeah, I'm not sure that like a control freeze mage needs this card. You can combo it on turns 4 and past, and it gives you an extra turn to draw into things. So if you can, you know, if your opponent only has 1 minion on board or whatever, and you can also freeze the face as well. So against Pirate Warrior, it does let you stall for a little bit further. I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 3, but I'm not sure that it's as good as people might think. Meat Wagon. Super cool design. Really like the design of this card. The main obvious synergy would be Doomsayer. But when your opponent kills this, they're probably going to know that it's a Doomsayer coming, and they're going to have 7 damage to deal with the Doomsayer, probably. So I don't think you would play it just to get out your Doomsayer, right? So you're going to need to buff it. And if you buff it, it's decent, but I'm not sure that buffing it is going to be as reliable either. And you're going to need to buff it by a lot, and then what are you even pulling with the buff? Are you pulling Malygos? You know, if you give it like Blessing of Kings or something, pulling Malygos? I don't really know. I think this card is cool and it makes me think. I'm not sure that it's constructed viable, so I'll give it a 2. But I still like that the card exists because it makes me think. And it could open up some combos that I'm not thinking of. Necrotic Geist. So it's kind of like a Cult Master, but instead of drawing a card, you summon a 2/2. But for 6 mana, it's not that great. It's a 6 mana, even if you get a summon immediately, it's a 7/5. 6 mana 7/5 isn't that good. This is mostly pack filler and good in Arena. I don't think it's that good in Constructed. You know, if you're gonna have a whole bunch of your other tokens die, you probably just want to play like Scavenging Hyena in Hunter, right? I don't really think there's any other deck that really would make use out of this. And if you're having a whole bunch of other minions die, is just 2/2 ghouls what you want? Like those will die pretty easily to Consecrate and stuff. And there's lots of board clears coming in this set. You've got the 5 mana Death Rattle dude that deals 3. You've got Defile. You've got the 1 mana Priest thing that works with spell power. You know, you've got a lot of ways of clearing boards coming in this set. So I think 2/2 ghouls will die too easily. I'll give it a 1 out of 5. Alright, Cobalt Scalebane. It's a dragon, which is important. And it's 5/5, but the effect is pretty strong. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I don't think it's that bad, but I don't think it's super strong either. So it's mostly just a decent 5 mana value card that you can get from Dragon Discovers or random dragon type of effects. And I don't think you're really super unhappy getting this card. Whereas if you got some of the other dragons that, you know, this is just kind of decent average dragon, cool. It's just to make random dragon effects or discover dragon effects kind of have a decent 5 mana value card to draw or to get. So yeah, 3 out of 5. Embrace Darkness. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. Right, the problem is your opponent can choose to just kind of kill their own minion a lot of times. Kind of like the opposite of value trading, where you can choose to intentionally trade to make it as weak as possible, or to just kill it outright, in which case it's 6 mana Corruption, where it dies the next turn. That doesn't seem that good. I don't know. It seems too inconsistent. It's too inconsistent for your opponent to be able to make you not get 6 mana worth of a card off of this. You know, the power of mind control is that your opponent can't do anything about it, right? It just happens instantly. Giving your opponent a turn to deal with this is not that great, I think. This might be a 1. This might be a 1. I don't think it's strong enough. You lose so much tempo playing this. I think it's a 1. Stitched Tracker. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I almost want to give it a 5 out of 5, though. Discovering a copy of a minion in your deck is kind of like the Shadow Visions effect. And you can discover, Abominable Bowman. I don't think you can discover hero cards with this because they're not minions, right? But you can discover. You can basically just play this on 3, and yeah, it's a loss in tempo, but you're already playing a 3-mana 2/2 in Rat Pack. And it's not a beast himself, so you can play it in the Abominable Bowman deck, control type of thing. It doesn't curve into Houndmaster, but you can discover a 4-mana card and be able to curve into it. Like, you can just fill out your curve, kind of. So it's still decent in mid-range, even if it doesn't, even if it's not a beast and doesn't curve into Houndmaster. I'll give it a 4 out of 5 because I'm not sure that it's a staple, but I think in Control Hunter, this card is flying under people's radar, and I think this is actually pretty strong. So I'll give it 4 out of 5. Valkyr Soulclaimer. Again, kind of an enrage warrior type card. It's kind of similar to the Warlock Imp Gang boss. And the tokens are stronger, but this has to survive, so you can't really trade as aggressively with it. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. This could be stronger than I think. This could be like a 4 or 5 out of 5 card. Could be stronger than I think, but I'm not sure that the Enraged Warrior is going to be super, super strong. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Sunborn Valkyr. I love the art on this card for one thing. The wings look sick. And I think it's decent, probably not super constructed playable, probably playable in Arena though. So I'll give it a 2 out of 5. Archbishop Benedictus. It's a 7-mana 4/6, which is Curator stats, but it doesn't have Taunt. And the problem with the Battlecry is you win the fatigue game, you win the value control versus control game, but you don't have consistency in your draws anymore. And I think that's actually a pretty big downside. Because in control versus control, you want to be able to consistently draw into answers. So I'll give it a 2 out of 5. I think in control, you would rather put a whole bunch of threats on the board and make your opponent try and outvalue your own deck in kind of like a dragon priest type of thing. I don't think you really want this. I could be wrong, but I'll give that a 2 out of 5. I don't think it's that strong. Gnome Feratu. I'm giving it a 2 out of 5, but here's the thing. I need to rant on this card because this card shouldn't be printed. This effect has 0 skill involved, and it has like a 5 to 10% chance of just winning you the game if you discard the right card. So I don't think this card should be printed because there's no skill involved, and a 2-mana 2/3 5% chance to win the game is a really dumb card to print. And so I don't think it's constructed viable. I don't expect this card to get played, but I think this card existing and getting printed is a mistake because it's just a dumb card to make 2-mana 2/3 5% chance to win the game. So yeah, lots of people are saying it doesn't matter until you hit fatigue, which is untrue. Lots of people are saying it doesn't matter if you're not playing against combo, which is untrue. The main thing is like if you're a mid-range hunter, you mulligan for 1 and 2 drops, but you don't hit a 3-drop, and then your opponent plays this and it discards a 3-drop, you have a much lower chance of drawing a 3-drop, and then maybe you don't draw a 3-drop, and then you lose all the tempo of playing a mid-range or aggro deck if you don't have a card to play on curve, basically. And then that kind of just makes you like auto lose most of the time if you don't have a play on one of your early turns. So I think this card is stronger than people think. I still don't think it's super, super strong though, but I do think it's stronger than people think. And I think it's just a mistake to print this card, and I hate Blizzard for printing this card. And I hope it's worse than I'm thinking it is, and I hope it never gets played, but I have a feeling it will, and yeah. Alright, Runeforge Haunter. I think this card is actually stronger than people think it is because of the other cards that we've seen with the boomerang or doomerang, whatever, and you're giving your weapon lifesteal, you can buff your weapon, things like that. You can do a lot of cool things with this card. I think people are underestimating this card. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. It might be a 4 out of 5. I think this card is stronger than people think. It's not just add 1 durability to your weapon. Phantom Freebooter. So it is a neutral, and it is a pirate. I think if it gets played in anything, it's probably going to get played in Rogue or Warrior, right? Those are the main 2 pirate classes. But on 4 mana, it's pretty bad if you don't have a weapon equipped, right? How often are you going to have a weapon equipped on turn 4? You could have Fiery War Axe, could get upgraded, so it could be a 4-3. Could have Shadow Blade, could be a 3-2. So you could get like a 6-5, or at most like a 7-6. It's pretty strong. Some Pirate Warriors and things were running Bittertide Hydra. And the fact that this has pirate synergy is pretty important. I think this card is better than people think. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Mainly for Pirate Warrior, and I really don't like Pirate Warrior, but I'm still giving it a 4 out of 5. And I think it might be decently strong in Rogue too. Crypt Lord. Mainly see this in Token Druid or the Taunt Druid if that becomes a thing, kind of a hybrid of aggro and Taunt Druid, I guess. Only having 1 attack is pretty bad, but Tar Creeper already gets played occasionally. And you can buff its attack via Savage Roar, just Power of the Wild, Mark of the Lotus type things, so I'll give this card a 4 out of 5. Tomb Lurker. So it's 5 mana 5-3, but the battle cry is kind of a card draw, which is kind of similar to Azure Drake. However, it doesn't have spell power. But it's a random Death Rattle minion that died this game. I could see this being played in Priest, in like a Death Rattle N'Zoth quest Barnes type of weird priest thing, where you're just trying to get value out of your 9 mana 4/8 taunt lifesteal with Death Rattle, destroy a random enemy minion. So I'll give this card a 3 out of 5. I think it's stronger than people think. I'm not sure it gets played outside of Priest. What other decks run N'Zoth right now? Not really anything, right? Quest Warrior does occasionally, super rarely, but it's kind of a gimmick. So, yeah, mainly in Priest. Righteous Protector. I'm pretty sure this card is a 5 out of 5. It's Annoyotron combined with Argent Squire. And there's lots of Death Rattle synergies. There's lots of Taunt synergies. Yeah, pretty much that's just a 5 out of 5 1-drop right there. Pretty much everything you would want on a 1-drop. People are saying it makes Stonehill Defender worse in Paladin. I don't even think it does, because I think you're going to change Control Paladin into having stuff like Bolvar and being a bit slightly more Divine Shield focused. And 1 mana 1/1 Taunt Divine Shield is just good. That's honestly probably better than most of your other Discover options some of the time. If you're not getting like Tyrians and things like that. But Sunkeeper Terraming this is pretty good. You know, you can do a lot of things with this in just normal Control Paladin, where I don't even think this is a bad Discover option anymore. So, yeah, that's a 5 out of 5 card. Mindbreaker. Your powers are disabled. I think that's a 3 out of 5. It's mostly for use against the Death Knights, but I'm not sure it would see constructed play. Unless, like, the way this sees constructed play is if there's 1 or 2 Death Knight decks that are really dominant in the meta, and this is a good tech against them. And I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But on the off chance it does, I'll give it a 3. Maybe it's a 2. Not sure. It's tough to call. Corpse Widow. I think this card is flying under people's radar, and I want to give it a 5, but I'll give it a 4. If you hit any single death rattle with this, it's a 3 mana 4/6, right? And then you play the other card, which is super strong. I think mainly you play this with Abominable Bowman, and then you can play Corpse Widow, Abominable Bowman on the same turn. Then you have a 4/6 and a 6/7 with a death rattle that can resummon the 4/6 if it dies first, or it can resummon your Build-A-Beasts. And that just seems insanely strong. Yeah, this card just seems insanely strong. I think this card should be a 5 out of 5, but I'm hesitant to give it a 5 out of 5 because Hunter kind of struggles right now. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Devour Mind. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. It might be a 4 out of 5 card, though. Good for value in control versus control matchups. And it's not a minion, so if you're doing the Barnes Death Rattle and the Zoth thing, that could be important. But for 5 mana, that's kind of a lot of tempo loss, so I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Obsidian Statue. I think this card is insane. 5 out of 5 card on this one. I think this is going to kind of define Priest, pretty much. It's similar to Primordial Drake, but I think this is just super strong, right? If you're against aggro, it doesn't clear the board, but it having lifesteal is like insane. You know, if they get through 8 health of taunt, and you've life stolen 2 or 3 times as an aggro deck, like the game's over. Like, it doesn't matter what minion. This could destroy a 1/1 token, and then like who cares? But the problem is going to be making it to turn 9 and playing this, right? But I think Priest has a pretty good chance of doing that with things like Spirit Lash, the AoE and things like that. I think this card's 5 out of 5. I think this is going to define Priest for a while. Simulacrum. This is kind of similar to Dead Man's Hand, I think, where this is a combo card, right? This is a combo piece card. I don't know what the combo it does, though, is. That's the problem. So I'll give it a 2 out of 5 because I think it's harder to control, and I think it's overall less value than the Dead Man's Hand. But this could be good in some sort of combo. Unwilling Sacrifice. So this is basically a randomly, it's Deadly Shot and destroy a friendly minion, right? So it's basically Deadly Shot with a downside. Deadly Shot already isn't seeing much play, so I'll give this a 1 out of 5. I can't see what deck you would run this in. Even in like some sort of Egg Zoo deck where you want to be destroying your own things, not being able to choose which enemy minion to destroy is not that great. So yeah, that's a 1 out of 5. I don't think that card is very strong. Corpse Razor, it has the Ancestral Spirit effect. I think people are underrating this card. This card is actually pretty strong. Basically on any minion with a Death Rattle even. So, you know, you play this in Abominable Bowman Control Hunter, you play this in the Priest deck I've been talking about. Like, you can play this in a lot of stuff, and it's real strong. So I'll give this card a 3 out of 5. It might be a 4 out of 5, though. This card might get played more than I think. Lillian Voss. So I think this doesn't get played in Miracle Rogue as it currently is. However, I think a more Burgle type of hybrid could be created out of this. And it's a 4-mana 4/5. So yeah, I think a Burgle tempo type of rogue could be a thing. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Glacial Mysteries. I actually think people are underrating this card, which is funny because they did the same thing to Mysterious Challenger, right? Where each Mage Secret is 3 mana. And you're not only drawing them, you're playing them, which is the Mad Scientist effect. And so you're spending 8 mana, draw 5 cards, right? Which is kind of like Sprint, but you're not drawing them, you're playing them. So if you get 3 secrets off of this, you drew 3 cards and played 3 cards. So you got 9 mana worth of play in effect, but you also drew them. Which I think is pretty strong. So I think if you get more than 3, this card is actually pretty strong. Now the problem is the Mage Secrets might not be strong enough to be played multiple of them, and this is 8 mana, so you can't do this for huge tempo as early in the game. So I'll give this card a 3 out of 5. I think this is stronger than people think. I'm not sure that a Secret Priest is the strongest archetype, but I think this card is stronger than people think. This might be a gimmick tier 3 kind of deck. Burlock. So this is kind of similar to Rockpool Hunter, I think, where it allows you to trade up on turn 2 after you play a Murloc on turn 1. But better than trading up, where you still damage your minion, if you just freeze the enemy minion, they can't really do anything. And then you have your turn 1 Murloc, a 2/2 Murloc, and then on turn 3, you already have 2 Murlocs on board. That's hard for your opponent to deal with. Turn 3, if you play another Murloc, War Leader or something, that's a pretty strong board all in and of itself. Kind of similar to the Murloc Paladin, where it has 1-drop turn 1, then plays like Hydrologist on turn 2. Now the important thing with Hydrologist is you can't play stuff like Noble Sacrifice to protect your Murlocs immediately on turn 2 unless you have the coin. So I think this card is actually stronger than people think. I will give this card a 3 out of 5. Valeera the Hollow. I think I'm going to underrate this card. Because it doesn't seem that strong to me, and I kind of am expecting myself to be wrong. This is a card that I expect people to get wrong. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5. You're going to really have to build your deck around this, because you don't want to draw or be playing cards that cost more than 5 mana. Unless they're spells and you have preps. But I don't know of many high-end rogue spells that you would want to play multiple of, even with preps. You have Sprint, which you can't play 2 of, even if you prep it out. And you have Vanish, but once you vanish the first time, there's no reason to vanish the second time on the same turn. And you do lose this after the turn is over. So I think you're going to have to build around this deck, and it's going to be tricky. Build around this card, build the deck around this card. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I'm expecting I might underrate this card. This is really hard to evaluate, though. I almost want to give it a 2. But I'll give it a 3, because I'm kind of expecting 2 might be wrong. Whoops. Ultimate Infestation. So I want to give this card a 5 out of 5, just for the meme. I want to give it a 4 out of 5 for the actual value of the card. I'm almost leaning towards 3, because I think the main problem is getting to turn 10. You can ramp there, but I think actually drawing 5 cards, you're going to want to do this when you have less than 5 cards in your hand. And it's a good refill mechanic, but I think you're often going to have 4 or 5 cards in hand already, and you don't want to overdraw or waste draws on this. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I think the hardest thing about this is choosing a good time to play it where you don't overdraw. Desperate Stand, it's basically redemption on a minion. I'm not sure that you would want to play this instead of the 5-mana neutral dude that gives Ancestral Spirit to a minion. It does work with Divine Shields decently, but I'm still going to give it a 2 out of 5. It is low cost, which is decent, because there might be some combos you can do with that. Shadow Ascendant. I'll give this a 4 out of 5. Mostly you curve into, or you curve with the Northshire Cleric into this, then you have a 2-2 and a 2-4. So it's like you played a 2-2 turn 1, which is Enchanted Raven, and then you played a 2-4 turn 2, which is pretty strong. And it has the whenever another minion gets healed effect, so you can trade the 2-4 and then heal it back up. So, and if you let this live for multiple turns, then that's pretty strong. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Treachery. This is a meme gimmick card. I'm gonna give it a 1 out of 5, but there's probably somebody who builds a meme deck, and it's just you have a whole bunch of bad cards, and you give your opponent the bad cards, like Ticking Abomination and other crap. I don't know. It's a 1 out of 5 card. I don't understand the point of that card really. Skulking Geist. It's anti-Jade. Woo. That's about it. I don't really have any thoughts other than that. It's anti-Jade. I think it's a 2 out of 5. It's a tech card. It might get played if Jade Druid is still an annoying problem in the meta, but I kind of don't expect that Jade Druid will actually be that big of a problem. The Death Knights seem pretty strong late game to deal with Jade Druids late game, so most of them anyway. A few of them don't. Like Valeera's doesn't seem that good, but yeah. Ice Fishing. It's Arcane Intellect that's cheaper, and you choose what you draw. That seems pretty strong. The other thing is, the only problem with it is Murlocs aren't that great cards to draw. Where I would almost spend 3 mana and draw non-Murlocs. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5. There might be a deck. This might be a combo type of card that I'm not evaluating correctly. I'll give it a 3 out of 5, just because it's good for the mana cost, but don't really see what the strength of this card is that much. And maybe that's why they priced it at 2, is because at 3 it's definitely bad. Alright, Acolyte of Agony. It's Earthen Ring Farseer that only heals your face. I don't know, I don't see the point of this card. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. It's alright, but you don't really need healing early in the game. And yeah, it's okay. It's a 2 out of 5. Roll the Bones. Kind of similar. I don't really think a Death Rattle Rogue is going to be a thing. So I'll give it a 2 out of 5. Yeah, I just don't think Death Rattles are going to be super strong. So it's going to be a 2 out of 5. I don't think Death Rattle Rogue is really going to be an archetype. Drukhari Defender. It has a lot of overload, huh? I think the overload on this kind of kills it, actually. And the 2 attack specifically kind of kills it. If this was like 3 or 4 attack, it might be more reasonable, but 2 attack is kind of too low, I think. So I'll give that a 2. I almost want to give it a 1, but that's a big taunt that you can play on turn 3. So maybe that's good enough if there's a control shaman anti-aggro type thing. I don't know. Frozen Clone. I think this card is actually pretty good. This is definitely good in Arena. Is it good enough for Constructed? I think in a control type of mage, yeah, definitely. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I almost want to give it a 4 out of 5, though. Shadow Reaper Anduin. So the hero power on this is deal 2 damage, and after you play a card, refresh the hero power. So this is kind of like the Lyra Miracle deck, right? Where you play a whole bunch of cheap cards and you're refreshing your hero power, and there's kind of like a Miracle style to it. I don't think it's going to be stronger than the other archetypes of just a control death rattle type thing. You could play both, right? It's only costing one slot in your deck to play both. So maybe this is stronger than I think it is. I'll give it a 3 out of 5, but it might be a 4. Play Dead. I think this card is stronger than I think, but I'm going to give it a 3. The main thing you want to do is trigger Abominable Bowman, right? That's pretty much it. But there's lots of Death Rattle synergies. I'm not sure you actually play this card in that deck, though. I think you kind of just get enough value without it, but you don't really have a whole lot of early game to play anyway. So you might just play this. You don't play it early game, but like just 1 mana trigger the Death Rattle is a pretty decent effect. The question is, do you play this and then Terrascale Stalker in that deck? I think you might, actually. Death Speaker. I think this card is stronger than people think. Giving a friendly minion immune this turn, you have a lot of like, you have adapts from the previous expansion, right? And then you also have even more poisonous cards like now. And you have lots of minions that, like, this is basically just give Divine Shield and then play a 3 mana 2/4, right? That's a strong card. Like, I think this is a 3 out of 5. I think this card might be stronger than people think. I could see this being played. Like, you have the Druid 5 mana summon 2 1/2s with poisonous. You just give one of those immune. Like, dang, that's pretty strong. You have lots of ways of using this card. So, yeah, 3 out of 5. Fallen Sun Cleric. This is my favorite art of the expansion. I want to see like the full size art. I want to see the golden of this art. This art, I love this art. I want to get like that as a poster. I love this artwork. But it's the Shattered Sun Cleric, Shattered Sun Cleric effect. I think if this was 1 mana, it would be strong, right? A 1 mana 2/1. So I think it would be better as a 1 mana 1/1. And at 2 mana, I think it almost has to be a 2/2, which is similar to the Priest effect, right? But then the Priest card doesn't make sense, because then you would have to have it live for 2 turns, which seems tough in order to get more than the effect of this card, since this card comes immediately. So I think this is a 2 out of 5. I think it's mostly an arena card, mostly pack filler kind of thing, but I like the artwork, so it's cool. Rotface. When I first saw this card, I was like, oh, it's bad. It's an 8 mana 4/6, right? But in the Enrage kind of deck, this does allow you to transition into control if you haven't won the game at that point. Because summoning a random legendary, you're going to be able to do that like probably 2 or 3 times. Unless they deal with it like definitely immediately, you know, if they just fireball it next turn or something. So this might just be like the Enrage Warrior finisher, but you might just want to go more aggressive anyway and not try to worry about transitioning to control. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5. but this could be stronger than I think. Breath of Sindragosa. Deal 2 damage and freeze it. It's a random enemy, right? But it is only 1 mana. And I think you could reasonably target this on something important. I think the freeze effect is the stronger effect out of this than the deal 2 damage. And you might almost want to play this over Glacial Shard even, in like a freeze type of mage. Why would you want to do that? It doesn't really synergize that well with spell power. And Glacial Shard being an elemental does synergize with the Death Knight. I'm not sure. It's kind of similar to Glacial Shard though. It's interesting. I will give it a 3 out of 5. Maybe a 2. Nah, I'll give it a 3. Hellfiend. Another discard Warlock card. It's not that great. I'll give it a 3 out of 5, just because it's a 3 mana 3/6. The main thing, like, is this card even good against the Enrage Warrior, where it's playing a whole bunch of Whirlwinds or something? I don't even know. Shadow Essence. So this is kind of similar to the Barnes effect I was talking about, but it's 6 mana 5/5 copy, which is still good if you're controlling what minions it gets. Works decently with Medivh. And free from Amber and things like that. I will give it a 4 out of 5. I can see this card being good. 4 out of 5. There's lots of strong minions with effects in Priest. Bone Drake. I'm also going to give this card a 4 out of 5, especially for Dragon Priest, but I think there could be like a dragon type of big easy druid actually that runs this. It's kind of like just real strong, real good value. 6 mana 6/5 isn't that bad. That's high main stats. And then a random dragon to your hand is also pretty strong. I think most dragon decks would prefer that over a over the 2/2 hyenas. And then it being a dragon and the Death Rattle being a dragon, like it has synergy with Death Rattle and has synergies with other dragon effects. So yeah, I think this card's a 4 out of 5. I expect this card to get played more than people think. I think that's pretty strong. You might just drop that into lots of decks as a good value card. Web Weave. So I think people are underrating this card, but I still don't think it's as strong as like it's not going to be a meta defining type thing. But I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Because it either baits an AoE and then you have one less AoE to play around with, and they still probably spent like an AoE. If they spend Consecration on this, that's 4 mana for 5 mana or whatever, right? But you baited an AoE, and that's still bad tempo in the mid game. They don't want to just play Consecration on a board of 2/1 or yeah of 2/1/2s. So if it doesn't get an AoE, it's pretty reasonable that these can trade for 5 mana worth of minions. So you mostly want to play this when they have 0 or 1 minion on board and then no weapon equipped, mainly, so that they can't deal with it very easily. And if one of these gets left alive, even if just one of them gets left alive for a turn, and you can defend it with taunts, with the Death Speaker, you know, make it immune and then trade up, hide it behind taunts, like you can do lots of cool things with this. So I think it's a 3 out of 5. I'm not sure. Serenite Chain Gang. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. It's a neutral Feral Spirit, basically. It's 4 mana, whereas Feral Spirit can be played on turn 3 and then costs 5 mana total with the Overload. You can curve into this really well with the Grime Street Smuggler, I want to say it is, and the Shaky Zip Gunner in Hunter. And Hunter really wants early game taunts. And they specifically in the Abominable Bowman deck want early game minions that aren't beasts. So you have Shaky Zip Gunner and Grime Street Smuggler, I think that's the name of it, which both hand buff this. And so then you get two either 3/4s with taunt or 4/5s with taunt. If the hand buff effects go onto this card. And if you're not really playing many other early game minions, I feel like that's pretty often. So yeah, this just seems super strong in like a Control Hunter type of thing. I think this card might actually carry Control Hunter. Even without any hand buffs on it, I think it's just good enough to play. Would a Control Hunter deck want to play a neutral Feral Spirit at 4 mana? I feel like it would, just because it's in need of an early game decent taunt that badly. So yeah, I think this card's a 4 out of 5. This might even be a 5 out of 5. And it has a chance of getting played in hand buff Paladin and maybe some sort of hand buff Warrior. I'm hesitant on the Warrior though. But yeah. Happy Ghoul. So this has synergy with Priest, obviously, and then Lifesteal minions. I still think it's mainly going to get played in Priest, and I don't really see a Tempo Priest kind of coming about if this gets played. But the main thing I could see this in is in a Zoo deck, in Warlock actually, where you heal your Warlock, and then you play this as a 0 mana 3/3, and it's a Zoo card. That's what I think. And I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Despicable Dreadlord. It is all enemy minions. I'll also give this a 3 out of 5. This could get played in the demon type of deck pretty well. It's kind of similar to Baron Geddon, actually. Forge of Souls. Draw 2 weapons from your deck. I will give it a 4 out of 5. Drawing 2 cards is good. Them being weapons is real strong. Even though you're potentially, like, you don't have them on turn 2, you already are probably, like, armoring up or something. And in Control Warrior, I think this is just insane. So, yeah. I think that's a 4 out of 5 card. Snow Fury Giant. So they're kind of making this isn't an elemental, right? And they're kind of adding overload support, which is not an archetype I expected them to be printing more support cards for. I thought the overload thing was kind of done with, but I guess each set kind of has to have a giant, maybe? I don't know that one came out in Ungoro. I can't remember. It's mostly for Evolve and Devolve, right? Of 10 and 12 cost minions. It's okay. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. I don't expect that to ever be in a deck, really. Rattling Rascal. So this gets played with the Warlock, like, give you a minion type thing, basically, where you get a 5/5 and then it summons a 5/5, so you get a 4 mana 10/10, and they get a 2/2. But it also costs 2 cards plus the other give your opponent a card thing, which is 3 mana, I want to say. So it's a 7 mana 10/10 that gives your opponent a 2/2 and costs 2 cards. Why is that? Yeah, it's a 4 mana 7/7. It's a meme. It's a gimmick card. It's probably a 1, maybe a 2. Scourge Lord Garrosh. I think this card is real good. I think this card is really, really good. The question is, do you play this over Taunt Warrior? Because the Taunt Warrior hero power is stronger. However, the weapon on this is real dang strong. You can play both, right? Where you equip this weapon and then specifically use the charges on it and then equip the other weapon to get the other hero power. I'll give this a 4 out of 5. Drakari Enchanter. Your end of turn effects trigger twice. Cool. It's like a Bran effect. I'll give it a 3. There's probably some cool combos you can do with this. That might be a 4. There might be some cool combos, but I'll give it a 3. Doomerang. This card is insane in Rogue. Like, this card might just define Rogue for like a long time. It's a cheap spell. It works with with weapons real well. That you don't take the damage from them. Like, you can get the Battlecry effect on the weapon again. Like, oh my god, this card is insane in Rogue. This is probably a 5 out of 5 card. Night Howler. It's like Gurubashi Berserker. Or, what is it, Aberrant Berserker, kind of? It's pack filler. I don't even think this sees played in the Enrage deck. It's a 4-mana 5/3. Like, okay. Why not just play whatever that is? What's the 4-mana 5/4 card that I'm thinking of? I can't find the 4-mana 5 card I'm thinking of. But it's like a neutral, and it's literally just a 4-mana 5/4 beast. I feel like you would rather play that over this card. So, yeah. Skelemancer. If your opponent's turn, summon an 8/8 skeleton. Huh, it's a 5-mana 8/8. And you get a 2/2. Interesting. This card seems actually pretty strong. I might give this card a 4. This card gets a 4, I think. This card is strong. This card's decently strong. No, I'm gonna give it a 3. Your opponent isn't going to be threatened by a 2/2 staying on board, so it's really only going to die to AoEs. That might actually be a 2, now that I think about it. I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 3. Wicked Skeleton. That's a 1. If it's a 4-mana 5/5, you've had 4 minions that died this turn. And then it's a 4-mana 5/5, which might not even be constructed playable. So you need 5 minions to die this turn, which is super rare. And it's a 4-mana 6/6, which still might not even be constructed playable. So for it to be a 4-mana 7/7, which is when it definitely gets constructed playable, you have to have 6 other minions already die this turn. And at that point, like, I don't know. That's just not gonna happen. Okay. Deadscale Knight. It's 1/1 Murloc for 1 with lifesteal. I don't think this gets played in a Murloc deck. That's a 1. You could give lifesteal to Wisp, and it would still be a 1 at 0 mana. Even if it was a Murloc, I think. Wretched Tiller. Whenever this minion attacks, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. So it's a 3/1 for 1. It's basically Leper Gnome, where it's going to get traded into and then deal 2 damage. Alright, it's a 1. Card won't see constructed play. Spectral Pillager. Combo, deal damage equal to the number of cards you've played this turn. Interesting. So if you play like 3 other cards this turn, it's kind of like a fire elemental. And I think a 5/5 is probably better than a 6/3. I could see this getting played in Miroka Rogue with Sharazin and things like that. Where often, if you were going to deal 3 damage to something, do you want to use your Eviscerates on it? Maybe not. Is Backstab hero power? Maybe not. Do you want to Vile Spine it? Maybe not. This is kind of just another good option to have. I could see this being played. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. Tuskara Fisherman. It's 2 mana, 2/3. Give a minion spell damage. Could see play in Miracle Rogue? Maybe. Probably not. I'll give it a 3 out of 5, but it might be a 2. That's a tough one to call. Spell damage on a 2/3 isn't... Like, you could give a different minion spell damage, though. If you gave, like, your Arcane Giants spell damage or something. I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 3. That card might fly under people's radar. That might be stronger than people think. A 3 mana 4/4 that freezes your other minions. So it basically gets played in Freeze Shaman. In combination with Murabi. I don't think that deck is going to be that strong. I'll give this card a 2 out of 5. Grim Necromancer. It's a 4 mana 2/4 that summons 1/1s. So it's a 4 mana 4/6 with no synergy. Yeah, that's pack filler. Nobody's going to play that. This might get played in like an aggro druid token kind of thing. So I'll give it a 2 out of 5, but yeah, it's pack filler pretty much. Arrogant Crusader. I love this art too. Well, I don't love it, but it's cool. If it's your opponent's turn, summon a 2/2 ghoul. So you get a 4 mana 7/4. It's decent. It's a 3 out of 5. With 5 attack, I think it's threatening enough, but the upside of killing it on your opponent's turn isn't that big of a deal either way. So I think it's a 3 out of 5. I'm not sure that you would ever play this. That might be a 2 out of 5, but whatever. Death Axe Punisher. Give a random lifesteal minion in your hand, +2/+2. Have we seen a 5 mana minion that has lifesteal? What would this curve into? I don't know. Even on turn 5, if you hand buffed something by +2/+2, it's not that great. And you're playing a 4 mana 3/3. Meh. I'll give that a 1. I don't think that'll ever see play. Probably the best target for this to hit is the 9 mana 4/8 priest card, I guess. But then you're waiting till turn 9. Or like Worker Flame Burn Bristle or something. I don't know. It's a 2. It's a 2. Grave Shambler. That's a 1. It's a 1. Like, you would need to destroy 3 weapons? Well, does this get played in Rogue? What about an Elemental Rogue? I think it's a 1, but I'll give it a 2. You can destroy more weapons than I think, depending on the class. I'll give it a 2. Bone Baron. It gives you 1/1 tokens for 1 mana. So this does kind of work in a miracle type of way, where if you're playing multiple cards with the 6 mana dude and the Sherazin, Questing Adventure, Edwin Van Cleef, this is decent. I'll give that card a 3, but it might be a 4. I'll give it a 3. Exploding Bloatbat. Why wouldn't you just play Explosive Trap? That's a 1. You would literally just play Explosive Trap every single time over that card. If your opponent's turn, summon a 2/2 ghoul. I feel like this is just a worse Egg Napper, huh? Yeah, that's a worse Egg Napper. That's a 1 out of 5. Furnace Fire Colossus. Discard all weapons from your hand and gain their stats. You never want to discard weapons, though. You would rather play all the weapons. Like, this could be a 6 mana, like, 10/10, and you still wouldn't want to discard the weapons. Weapons are such good tempo. Like, holy cow. That's a 1. You never want to discard your weapons. What? That card makes no sense. Deal 2 damage to a minion. If it survives, give it poisonous. Interesting. So you can't target tokens. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. There's got to be some combo that I'm not seeing with this. Like, you can hand buff Wild Pyromancer, and then it's a board clear. Like, I don't know. That's weird. This card doesn't make sense to me. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. There might be a combo that I'm not seeing, but that seems really hard to make use out of. Keening Banshee. Whenever you play a card, remove the top 3 cards of your deck. You wouldn't play a 4 mana 5/5 even if it had no downside. And that's a bad downside. That's a 1. A card, probably you don't even pick it in Arena because it's actually trash. Death Revenant. Gain +1/+1 for each damage minion. Oh, each damage minion. Dang. Huh. I'll give that a 3. If there's 3 damage minions, it's a 6/6. If there's 4, it's a 7/7. 5 mana 7/7 is pretty constructed playable. I'll give it a 3. This might be a 4. It's a pretty good card. Venomancer, 5 mana 2/5 poisonous. So it's like my Exna for 5 mana. I might not even play that at 4 mana. So at 5 mana, that's probably a 1. Maybe it's a 2. I'll give it a 2. Spellweaver, spell damage +2. So it's evolved Kobold, but 2 turns later. And it dies to like a 4-drop or a 3-drop. Yeah, no one's ever going to play that. That's a 1. That's a pack filler. Nash, it's like Claw or Bite, but in between. I think you would rather just play Feral Rage. For the upside when you have Fandral. I don't know why you would ever play that card. Pack filler again. This is a 1. Dark Conviction. It's Keeper of Voldemort in a spell for 2 mana. This could maybe get played in some sort of combo, but I think you would just rather run Discover and draw stuff and just have Sunkeeper Tarim more frequently. I don't think it's worth playing this without the body. So that's a 2. Tainted Zealot, Divine Shield spell damage. It's a 1/1. Interesting card. I'll give it a 2. It's a 2 mana spell damage card, and Divine Shield makes it a little bit sticky at least. So it's kind of similar to Thalanos, but it doesn't draw a card, which is kind of big. But I'll give it a 2. Bloodworm. 5 mana, 4/4 lifesteal. It's a Build-A-Beast piece. I think it's a 2. 5 mana 4/4 is pretty bad. Even with lifesteal, I don't think you want to run it in Hunter. Even in like mid-range Hunter, which doesn't want to die to aggro decks. Archerous Veteran. Is it? It's Acarus. I always add an R. It's Acarus Veteran. Give a friendly minion +1 attack. So it's kind of like Abusive Sergeant, but this is permanent. Would this get played in Zoo? Seems unlikely. I'll give it a 2. Mostly pack filler. Arphus. Death Rattle adds a Death Knight card. Those Death Knight cards are pretty strong. That's a solid pupper right there. He's a good boy. I'll give that a 4. Maybe a 3. I'll give it a 4. Death Knight card's pretty strong. Lich King. I'll give it a 4. Getting Frostmourne off of this is probably the best, but there's a lot of other decently strong effects. I think the main thing is people probably can deal with this pretty regularly, so you're probably only going to get 1 or 2 cards off of it. And I think the fact that there's 8 options mean you aren't going to get the one you want as frequently. Even though they're all pretty good, I'll give it a 4. I'm wanting to give it a 5, but I'll give it a 4. Blood Reaver Gul'dan, summon all friendly minions that died this game. I don't know. I don't know how to evaluate this card. It's like N'Zoth for demons. There are some demons that have taunt. Some demons that have persistent effects. I'll give it a 4. I think this could be what Warlock needs, actually. Thrall Deathseer. Random minions. Random ones that cost 2 more. It's 5 mana. So you can combo this with Doppelganger. Doppel... And the taunt dude, the Feral Spirit dude, that's neutral. And some other things. There's a 4 mana 2/3 summon 2 1/1s. Stuff like that. I'll give it a 3. Malfurion the Pestilent. I think you're mainly going to play this for the 2 scarabs with taunt. The 2 poisonous ones, I think it's unlikely that you'll pick them as often. but the hero power is pretty strong. It's choose 1 3 attack or +3 armor. And you're probably going to go with the attack most of the time, but the armor is a good option as well, get you out of lethal range. I'll give it a 3. I don't think it's one of the strongest Death Knights in terms of late game, but it is only 7 mana, and the effect is decent. I'll give it a 3. It might be a 4. Uther of the Ebon Blade. I will also give him a 4. The chance that you can... I don't think you're going to get the instant win very often, but the chance that you're just with the lifesteal weapon, you gain 20 health. The chance that somebody's going to get through that when you're also dealing with 3 of their threats with 5 damage is pretty dang good. And then summoning a 2/2 as your hero power is also just good in general, whether or not you ever get the instant win. So I think for late game, this card's just pretty strong. I'll give that a 4. That's close to a 5 though, only because it's 9 mana. Blackguard. Whenever your hero is healed, deal that much damage to a random enemy minion. So this is good with lifesteal minions. Good with healing. It's like, wow, this card is actually crazy. It's real good with Ragnaros the Light Lord. It's real good with Forbidden Healing. It's good with like Guardian of the Ancient Kings. Like that's a classic card. Like this card's good to good with a lot of stuff. 9 health. It's gonna live for a while. This could reasonably live for like 2 turns. You get 2 heals off of this. Deal with 2 damage, 2 random enemy minions. That's pretty crazy. For 6 mana, I'll give that a 4. This card seems good. Druid of the Swarm. I really like this art too. Dang, that art is sick. I want to see that golden. Alright. To a 1/2 with Poisonous, or a 1/5 with Taunt. Well, rip, whatever it is, Silverback Patriarch. This is a 2 mana 1/5 beast with Taunt. Silverback Patriarch's a 3 mana 1/4. That card has gotten power creeped like 7 times or something. Dang. So yeah, you're pretty much gonna take this for the Taunt most of the time, I think. Poisonous isn't as good. This is just insane at like stabilizing the board against aggro early game. And you can buff it, and it works with all the other taunt synergies. Yeah, that's like a 4. 4 out of 5. Strong Shell Scavenger. So if you buff 1 taunt minion, it's a 4/5 for 4. If you buff 2 taunt minions, it's a 6/7. I think this card is real good. I'll give that also a 4. I think Taunt Scarab Druid is going to be pretty strong with this card. Avalanche. Freeze an enemy minion and deal 3 damage to adjacent ones. So it's kind of like Meteor, except the minion comes back after being unfrozen. So if Meteor is good at 6 mana, this is probably good at 4 mana. I'll give that a 4. Is this a mage card or a shaman card? I can't tell. I think it's a shaman card, right? I'll give that a 4. Drain Soul. So it's like whatever that other card is. Except now they just made lifesteal on it instead of changing the old card. So it basically got power creeped. This synergizes with spell power, that's about it. I don't know, it's a 3. I don't think it's as good. You really want to deal 3 damage on a 2 mana spell, like a Dark Bomb, but then that would be insane power creep with lifesteal, so yeah, I guess they had to do this kind of.